Hey guys, what's going on? Inception here and welcome to another video. Today we are going to be doing the part 2 installment of which prime icons are worth getting. So we're going to start off with the card after Del Piero, because Del Piero I believe was the last one that we did the other day. So we're going to start off with Carlos Puyol. Puyol is a type of card where I've used Puyol's card before. Now, it's pretty much the same generic answer that I usually pretty much give you guys, right? The acceleration, sprint speed, agility, and balance is far too low for someone that's supposed to be the best version of its card. Now, if you guys used to watch Carlos Puyol in real life, he used to actually be a really fast player. There's actually a clip of him on YouTube where he runs from the attacking side all the way back to his defensive line really quickly, right? Like, this guy is bulleting past people, right? So the fact that, you know, his prime only has 70 pace is a huge letdown, because FIFA isn't the type of game where, like, their gameplay doesn't revolve around, like, pace not being a thing, because it is a thing, right? So them only giving Puyol 69 acceleration, 70 sprint speed with 54 agility and 55 balance is, for me, a huge downfall, because even his passing, it's funny because his passing stats are actually decent, right? Because he actually was pretty good at passing during his prime time at Barcelona. Like, he played for a Barcelona team that is known for passing, right? So, like, every single person on the team needs to be good at it. So the base card stat being 68 passing is a little bit annoying, because it definitely should be better considering he played in prime Barcelona times. But it's kind of like how EA sees things with certain players, right? His physicality stats are really nice and his defensive stats are really nice, but those two just don't really do much for you if players can't catch up to the really good players. Because, you know, the positioning and stuff of the center backs isn't going to really matter if they can't really track back or go into that space that they need to go into. If I were to put a card on Puyol, it would definitely be Anchor, because his defending stats are already quite nice and his physical stats are already quite nice as well. So if you gave him an Anchor, it would definitely be more ideal. Carlos Puyol would actually have one of the better cards in FIFA had they have given him pace, because he has 91 aggression with 93 strength. So it would have been really nice if EA were to have done that with his card, but unfortunately they didn't, so it doesn't make his card very good. Now, if we look at the right back card, his right back card actually has a 76 pace. Now, if this 76 pace was added to his 90 card, then it would have been more acceptable in my opinion, because the 55 agility, 56 balance wouldn't have been a big issue considering that he is 5'10". But the acceleration being 75 and the sprint speed being 76 would have made the card more usable and more I can't like really put my words together right now, but a player that you would actually want, right? But yeah, it kind of sucks that they gave him that pace. It's kind of the same situation with Nesta, where the pace is just far too low to make the player usable, in my opinion. Because in FIFA, like, it's just the type of game where cards just aren't usable, right? They just don't feel usable. So Dennis Bergkamp is another card for the prime icons that is actually a very good card. I actually really do enjoy using this card. As a midfielder, he actually plays really well. He doesn't have any defensive stats, which can be a problem, but if you're very good at attacking, this card would be very nice to have in the midfield, because someone who has 78 jumping, 6 foot height, 77 strength, and 74 aggression, while also having a big physical stature in game, because he definitely does. This Bergkamp card is huge in game with 4-star skill moves and weak foot. Very nice card. Acceleration being 85 and the sprint speed being 83, while also having 81 agility and 82 balance, will make him move quite nicely on the ball. He won't be that bad, to be honest. His dribbling is really good. His finishing is very consistent. Now, the thing about attackers that people need to look at before buying them is you have to understand what your playstyle is. So if you like popping in those long shots, or you like doing those finesse long shots, you need to check to see if he has a finesse shot trait. So someone like Bergkamp does actually have the finesse shot trait. He has a chip shot trait, which does come in handy as well in these really tight situations with him. Flare is just, it's like whatever to have. If the game is really delayed, then sometimes they do the flare pass and you're holding L trigger, then letting it go, but then pressing A, but then the game registers that you're still holding the shield button. But yeah, this card is really fun to use. When I get him in foot draft, I actually do use him in the team. Sometimes I use him as a cam, as a striker. He's really fun to use in like a 4-1-2-2 where he's one of the strikers, as well as like a Ronaldo or something next to him, because he just his positioning on the pitch is really good. And I'm not sure if that has to do with 94 positioning with his card, but like I said, this card being 685k, for what you're getting, it actually plays really nicely. It's kind of like an upgraded version of Roberto Firmino's card, like a better version of Roberto Firmino's card. And if you guys don't know Roberto Firmino's card, he's going to have a sick team of the season, by the ways. We're going to go ahead and check out Roberto Firmino's card. So you see how he has 91 dribbling, 83 pace, 88 shooting, 86 passing, right? So his card stats are actually really good. And the thing about Firmino is that he actually feels better on the ball, right? But the thing about icons, like I said, like the stats may look better on Roberto Firmino's card, but because Bergkamp is a bigger player in game, because his physical stature, I always mention this to people, because EA made the physical stature of most prime cards bigger so that they're more usable in the game, that they're more the type of player that you actually want, right? Obviously, I'm pretty sure the team of the season Firmino, if that comes out, which it probably will, is going to play better than a prime icon, in my honest opinion, because this Roberto Firmino card is honestly incredible to use. Now, the fact that he has technical dribbler and Bergkamp doesn't really signifies your type of gameplay. Like, what do you want your players to do? The chip shot trait is very noticeable with Firmino, and it would be noticeable with any other card as well. But just in comparison with this card and Bergkamp's card, it may seem very similar, but Bergkamp's prime card is better just because of physical stature. So he's just a bigger presence on and off the ball. Really, really good card to use. If I were to get this card, I would probably give him a Hunter card, because you want the shooting to be as good as it possibly can be, and you want the pace to be as high as it possibly can be. Now, I will say this again, and I keep mentioning this to people: if you put Hunter on him, his pace will not feel like 99 acceleration and 93 sprint speed. It just won't, right? But his shooting will definitely be improved, not by this much, but it'll be improved as well. But the 14 and 10, you would 100%, like he would, if this was actually the case with Bergkamp's card, that he has 99 acceleration, 93 sprint speed, you would actually notice that he would be basically a steroid version of Martial's card, right? So definitely doesn't feel like 99 acceleration. 99 acceleration with decent agility and balance while being 6 foot tall, with great shooting stats and great passing stats, you would notice this significant increase, but it just isn't really the case, right? So we'll go on to the next card here. I think Peter Schmeichel is probably the next one here. I'm just making sure, because I don't know how to check just the prime versions of the card, so I just want to make sure that I don't check the same card, right? So in regards to Schmeichel's card, I told this to people before, and it kind of works the same exact way, right? Goalies aren't worth getting unless it's Farman, De Gea, Begovic, even Ter Stegen, because of that leg save trait. I personally find that these goalies are completely irrelevant to get because they don't have that leg save trait. And this is where it goes hand in hand of EA not really understanding how their game mechanics work, because these goalies become unusable because they don't have that leg save trait. Now, in my honest opinion, I wish the leg save trait wasn't a thing in FIFA. I wish it wasn't even a trait, because if it wasn't a trait in FIFA, then the goalies would decide whether they would do it or whether they wouldn't do it. And I feel like that would branch out the possibilities of goalies that you would probably choose, because the reason why De Gea is so overpowered in this game is because he has that leg save trait as well as good goalkeeping stats. So that's what makes the card really good to use in FIFA. But I don't really review goalies that aren't those guys, because they just don't play as well because they're missing that leg save trait. Paolo Maldini, I think we've already looked at Paolo Maldini's card. Alan Shearer. Alan Shearer is pretty much like a typical like icon that you would get if you were a fan of him when he was at Newcastle and stuff. If you were a fan of this guy was a beast back in the day, by the ways. Like I said, with these cards, man, in terms of movement, it'll always be bad because his agility and balance is poor. Considering he is 5'11", and his acceleration sprint speed just doesn't make up for him costing 405k. His shooting stats are really good. His physical stats are awesome. His passing stats are decent if you're playing him in a 4-1-2-2. Wouldn't recommend using him in a 4-2-3-1 wide because, you know, him as a lone striker, laying it off to the sides wouldn't really work out that well. Close passes would work, but the long passes definitely wouldn't. So this card, it's tough to say, because if you look at his traits, right, he has the long shot. He has a long shot taker trait. He has the power header trait. So because he is 5'11" with 88 jumping and 94 heading accuracy, his heading would be very, very good. So if you're playing this type of football where you cross the ball into the box a lot and you want your players to get into the box, then someone like Alan Shearer might actually win the ball a few times for you in the air. But you really shouldn't expect to do really good build-up with him. He's the type of player, right, where it's kind of based off of, like, you give him the ball and then he has to lay it off to someone on the side. So that's the problem with him, because his long passing isn't very good. So like I said, if you're using a 4-1-2-1-2 and you tell your fullbacks to always overlap, that would be more ideal, so that when your fullbacks overlap, you actually have people on the sides, and then when you do that, you'll be able to cross the ball more frequently. You can use a 3-5-2 if you really want to, and you're really trying to get that goal by crossing the ball into the box. But with Alan Shearer's card, like I said, he will not be able to open up the space for himself. He's very linear to just being able to score headers for you and just being really good at taking shots as well. Now, a big problem with him as well is that he does have a 3-star weak foot, and the 3-star weak foot can present to be a problem because it's always noticeable when someone has a 3-star weak foot. Shooting stats, even if they're in the 99s, will never make up for you having a 3-star weak foot, right? You need to have a 4-star for your finishing to be more consistent, because that driven shot with his left foot is going to be important. And because he doesn't have a 4-star weak foot, it's going to be a huge downfall to use his card. So it's more like the type of card you buy, like I said, if you were a fan of his in real life and you just want to use Alan Shearer in the game. But you would be putting yourself at a disadvantage, because someone like Anthony Martial would play 10 times better than that Alan Shearer card, 100%. Marcel Desailly, so Desailly's card we haven't seen either. Marcel Desailly's card, if you look at it, would actually be a pretty solid center back to get. Now, he's the type of center back that you would have to try out, obviously, because the 59 agility with the 56 bounce could present to be a problem. It really depends. Sometimes players have certain characteristics that kind of like overthrow the lack of agility and balance to be able to move left and right really smoothly. But he does have 82 acceleration with 83 sprint speed, so that could balance out the lack of agility and balance a little bit more. So it'll basically kind of make the acceleration and sprint speed more in the 78s, but would still be very good, because that's basically like saying you're putting like 78 acceleration and 78 sprint speed on the pace, but then you're also giving that to the agility and balance, right? In a way, it's not exactly how it works, because agility and balance will still be very noticeable, but if you can give this card a shadow card, then he would just be a little bit more faster, and then he would have better defensive stats, because this card actually does look very good. He does also have a 3-star weak foot, which is quite decent to have for a center back. His passing is quite nice as well, with 76 short passing and 72 long passing. So that's actually very ideal to have for someone who's going to be playing as a center back, right? Medium-high work rates is also very ideal to have. He has 84 jumping with 89 heading accuracy, while also being 92 strength. So in the air, he wouldn't be that bad either. 920K, it kind of seems a little bit steep for him, but at the same time, he's basically almost full meta in this game, if not a full meta in this game. It's the type of card that you have to try out in the game to really see if he's the type of player that you want in your squads or don't want in your squads. But he looks really good, man. I would definitely put a shadow card on him, because if you were to give him a shadow card, again, I don't think it's improved by this much, but the defensive stats claiming to be 99 is situational. It's whether or not you believe that. But putting a shadow card would be more ideal, because again, his physical stats are already good enough. You'd want to have his defensive stats to be as good as possible. If you don't need his defensive stats to be as good as possible, giving him anchor would be ideal as well, because giving him that extra jumping boost would definitely be more beneficial to your gameplay, because when someone sends in a cross, he won't be outbodied or outjumped in the air when he's defending against a cross, right? Robert Perez, I've used this card a few times. He's more like a fun card to use, right? So with Robert Perez's card, it's a usable card, right? And that's the fun thing about these cards, is that they have to be at least usable, right? He's a four-star player. His finishing is good. His acceleration and sprint speed is good. His agility and balance isn't that bad considering that he is 6'1", so he won't move that well on the ball. But he does have technical dribblers, so if you're doing the LTRT dribbling, he'll be decent at doing that. He has the finesse shot trait, so you can, cut inside and then do a finesse shot, and he'll be very good at doing those. His passing stats are really, really good. The problem with Perez's card, and I've used him in drafts sometimes, and this is a thing that's very noticeable. The problem with this card is two things. His physical lacks, but he's, again, big physical stature, so it helps a little bit, but his strength and aggression stats are low, so it only helps a little bit. The shot power being low can present to be a problem. Like I said, and I will always mention this, even if you give this card a hunter, the shot power still feels somewhat weak. You can feel it, right? But definitely if you use this card, you would have to use a hunter on him. It would be more ideal than anything, right? Because it's just a really, really fun card to use. I used this card as a center midfielder once, and it was actually really nice. It was really fun to use him there because he does have 76 jumping with 6'1" height, so he can somewhat win certain balls in the air. If you play him as a left winger or a left mid, he would still play quite decently as well. So I would definitely recommend trying that out as well, because he's a fun card, man. And it's Robert Perez, man. This is one of the cards from the Invincibles, right? So if you get this card for 380k, you really can't go wrong with it, right? It's a decent card to use. It's fun. It's Robert Perez. So I would definitely recommend getting this card for the fun concept and for somewhat of a meta concept. It would be a very usable card in FIFA. Michael Owen is the next one on the list. I think with Michael Owen's card, it's very linear to pace and dribbling and shooting. His physical stats aren't that great, and he doesn't have aggression. Aggression would have been really nice to have on this card. He is 5'8" height, 91 acceleration, 90 sprint speed, 86 agility, 85 balance. So that's actually quite nice considering that he is 5'8". He's not the tallest. His finishing stats are quite nice. His shot power is decent. 4-star weak foot is nice to have, but he is unfortunately the type of player that I don't like because he doesn't have enough stats to make up for his lack of height. It's weird how it works with these players. Like, I've tried using Michael Owen before. I think it's height, but I also think it's skill moves. I love having a player that's an attacker that actually has 4-star skill moves, because I don't like being linear, right? Because when you have 3-star skill moves, you're very linear to the skill moves you can do, so you're very predictable, right? If you have skill moves where you can go backwards, cut inside, and do all those skill moves that can actually break someone's defense down, for me personally, because of my game style, I would definitely prefer having that instead. But he does have decent pace, decent dribbling, decent shooting, so he is a very usable card. He does have decent jumping and good heading accuracy, so he can sometimes win the ball in the air, depending on the situation. But again, very usable card. For me personally, I didn't enjoy using him at all. But if you were to get this card, again, put a hunter on him. You want his pace and his shooting to be as perfect as it can possibly be, or as perfect as it can possibly be, and then just go from there, right? His traits are actually quite nice as well, because he does have tries to beat the defensive line. So if you tell him to get in behind, press the back line, he'll do that very nicely. He has the shooting trait. I don't know what the shooting trait actually does, but the finesse shot trait would definitely be really nice to have. And when you're running with him, cutting left and right while still holding our trigger would be very good with him, because he does have the speed dribbler trait. So the next card that we have here is Jari Litmanen. His card is an interesting card, because I've used this card sometimes in the draft, more when I'm using like a 4-2-3-1. I've only gotten this card literally one time. Being worth 400k is very, very debatable. This card doesn't really play that well in game, if I'm being honest with you guys. I don't like the way that he feels on the ball, because again, 79 agility with 72 balance isn't really ideal to have. 81 acceleration with 83 sprint speed is okay, but again, movement on the ball isn't the greatest. Now, if we look at his traits, he has injury prone, so I don't know if that's like an actual thing in FIFA, but if it is for them to get injured more often, that's a little bit of an annoyance to have. He does have the finesse shot trait. I'm not sure how beneficial it actually is to have to take finesse style free kicks, because Free kicks nowadays, as you guys know, I have the free kick tutorial that I usually do every year, and it always works. Very easy to defend against, but people never really look into it when it's being done, right? So again, card looks okay. He doesn't really have a finisher trait or anything. His finishing stats are good. His shot power is okay. His passing stats are all right as well. So if you're using him as a cam for fun, or if you're a fan of his when you were younger, then yeah, it would be okay to get the card. But the cards in general, like even this one is just pure awful to even consider getting, because these cards would be good if the gameplay was different, right? That's the thing about these cards, right? Like EA needs to understand what their gameplay revolves around to make these cards more usable, right? Because if you use this card in PES, this card would actually be quite decent. It would actually be like, because in PES you can use players like Modric and Iniesta and be able to dribble around with them really nicely. But with a card like Litman and with the agility and balance being as it is, these cards become very like unusable in FIFA. And you know, paying 400k for it wouldn't necessarily be an ideal thing to have. He is 4-star medium with medium work rates. So to be fair, the card isn't terrible, but again, it's not very ideal to get the card. Next card that we have here is Rio Ferdinand. So the prime version of Rio Ferdinand card is quite possibly the best center back in the game. Him, Maldini, very close, you know, because when I've used someone like Rio Ferdinand with the 60 agility and the 57 balance, it's not a problem with him, right? So that's why I always tell people, like, the acceleration and sprint speed can outweigh the agility and balance depending on characteristics of a player, right? So if you use Rio Ferdinand in the game, his physical stats are quite nice. If you give him a shadow card or an anchor card, it would be ideal. Anchor would help him with his jumping a little bit. He is 6'2", which is already very helpful to have. But if you can make his jumping better while him also having pretty decent height, it would definitely be ideal to either give him anchor or shadow. For me, I think I would give him shadow because, again, I want the standing tackles and the sliding tackles to be as good as it possibly can be. But after playing a few games, I would probably switch to anchor to see which one I would like between the two more, and then realize that maybe the anchor is better because it gives you a little bit more jumping, or maybe the shadow is better because I like the extra defensive stats. If you give him an anchor, it says that it gives him 99. Again, I'm not 100% sure if it actually gives him 99, but anchor wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing to give him because his acceleration, even if you give him just the basic cards, having 84 acceleration as a base card stat is very nice already to have, right? Because it'll allow him to quickly move to the left or quickly move to the right with good sprint speed, because he does also have 82 sprint speed to be able to defend a little bit better. So definitely would be ideal to get Rio Ferdinand as well. Again, shadow, anchor would definitely do the work for him for sure. Hernan Crespo's card is a very interesting one because I've always mentioned this to people, that this card can potentially be one of the most fun strikers to use in this game. Now, his passing stats are awful, very noticeable in game, right? But in front of the goal, having somewhat of a physical presence, being able to jump in the air, his finishing very consistent. I don't know if he has a trait or anything. He has a finesse shot trait, which is quite nice to have because he has 82 long shots, which is okay. 87 shot power, which is the more ideal thing to have, with 94 finishing and 92 composure. 90 agility with 85 bounce, 89 acceleration, 89 sprint speed, while also being 6 foot tall is very nice. So he won't move that badly on the ball. Now, he doesn't have technical dribbler, right? But his dribbling is not bad. He's not very good at doing the LT-RT dribbling, but he's very good at just dribbling in general. So if you're just using the left stick and you're just going up, down, left, right, he'll be okay at doing those, right? Again, passing stats are very noticeable, but this card has a ton of potential to be an incredibly good card to use in your team. 790k for a prime version of Crespo's card isn't bad, but you know, I would recommend seeing if you can try him out somewhere, maybe in a draft or something, to see if you actually really like him in the game. If you're using Crespo in your team, I would highly recommend you using a narrow base formation so he has players next to him so that the 72 short passing isn't really that bad, right? If you're using him in a 4-2-3-1, his passing is going to be very lackluster if you want to pass it off to the sides when a player is making a run, all that kind of stuff. So just be very careful of those specific stats, right? The passing can be a huge letdown, but in everything else, he looks like he would be a ton of fun to use. If you give him a hunter card, his shooting will be awesome, and his pace would also be very good. Now, he has clinical finisher as a like the specialities. He's got clinical finisher and complete forward, poacher, all those kind of things. So I feel like these things are noticeable in game, but I'm just not sure exactly what specialities do. The traits when someone has specific traits, you really notice those specific traits in your team. It makes a huge difference, right? Deku's card. So with Deku's card, Deku is a Porto legend. I love this guy, right? Back in the day, this guy used to be one of my favorite players. In FIFA, however, he's not very good. Now, his shooting stats are lackluster, so if you give him a hunter card, you know, his 75 finishing will still be very noticeable, because I've given a hunter card on Quaresma's card, and I'll show you guys this right now, right? So if you go to Quaresma's card and you go to his inform, right? His inform has 77 finishing with 84 composure. Now, if you give him a hunter card, they claim that his finishing is now 87. That really isn't the case. He still feels very similar to 77, but it's probably like increased by like a little bit, right? So again, it begs the question whether or not traits is down to characteristics of a player in game, like whether they focus more around pace or focus around shooting, or if it actually does improve specific stats of a player. So in regards to Deku's card, even if you give him a hunter card, you know, the stats look like they would be okay. Again, they claim it would be 99 acceleration, 91 sprint speed. It just isn't the case, right? I feel like EA kind of get away with that because the boost just isn't that much, right? Because that's their selling point, is that chemistry style. Like, these websites claim that it's this much. Because the thing with EA, right, is that they need to show you the specifics in their own game, because they don't have to claim any responsibility from websites doing it for them. But although I think EA representative have confirmed that these are the stat boosts, but it just isn't the case. You don't notice Deku being 99 acceleration or 91 sprint speed, because then this card would be really fun to use and more people would use him. It just isn't the case because he's not upgraded by that much. I'm almost certain of that, right? So in regards to Deku's card, again, usable card, not ideal though. He has no physical presence. He has no 3-star weak foot, which is a problem for the shooting, especially with 75 finishing. On the ball, he'll move decently, but he better move decently considering he's 5'8", right? You want to have decent agility, balance, acceleration, and sprint speed if you want to have the card be a little bit more usable. Shot power is decent, long shots are decent, but, you know, his passing is really good, to be fair. His passing is incredible, but, you know, there's so many other players that you can get for the price of less than 360k that will do a better job than Deku, have the pace, have the shooting, and be able to do work for you. If you are a fan of his in real life, whether you are a fan of his in Barcelona, Porto, even Chelsea, then you would purchase the card and you would have fun with him. I 100% have never seen Deku be used in one team yet because he's just not a usable card meta-wise. People are very meta-oriented with FIFA, so you just wouldn't necessarily be ideal. You'd be putting yourself at a huge disadvantage if you had him in your club. If we look at his traits, however, we're going to see if he has any good traits. So he has Playmaker. Don't know what Playmaker does. Technical Dribbler is a given. If he didn't have Technical Dribbler, it would be a huge problem, to be fair. He has Long Shot Taker, which is okay, but again, 3-star weak foot, not necessarily ideal to have. Takes Finesse Style free kicks, not really relevant, considering that actually takes longer to take the free kick, so it actually wastes time, right, for the guy to get into the net and all that stuff, right? Next card we have here, I believe, is Luis Hernandez. I think it is. Luis Hernandez's card is this prime version of his card. Okay, so we have 92 pace. So a lot of people actually used this card and somewhat really enjoyed him. They thought that he was quite decent. Like, he wasn't a terrible card to use, right? My problem personally with him would have been the height and the lack of weak foot, right? Because I just need to have the player be able to score with his weak foot. If they can't do that, it's annoying. But if you look at the specifics of his card, it looks amazing to use, right? So if you're a person that doesn't care about the weak foot, right? Because I think pro player Sean Allen used this card, and he really liked it for a large majority of his FIFA playing time, right? So 4-star skill moves is quite nice to have. 94 acceleration with 91 sprint speed with 93 agility and 85 bounce is quite nice to have for someone who is 5'8" height. He does have 91 finishing, 91 positioning, 86 shot power, 83 long shot. So again, not bad to have at all. So on the ball and off the ball, he'll move really nicely. Now, he does lack in the physical traits, right? So physically, he's not necessarily the type of player that's going to be able to outbody people. He also doesn't have aggression stats, and aggression stats will not make him, outbody those guys who are huge in game that have that crazy good physical presence. If we look at his traits, however, he does have the power header trait, which is interesting considering that he is a small player with 89 jumping and 93 heading accuracy. He does have speed dribbler, so being able to run and move left and right while still running will be very good with him. Chip shots are good, and he does have tries to beat the defensive line, so with his pace and his dribbling stats would be very nice to have as a right striker in your team, right? Someone who can move that quickly on the ball and actually have that trait to do it more often than not will definitely be ideal. He'll move into the box really quickly depending on your tactics and instructions, obviously, but he would still move very nicely. So it's a very usable card. His passing stats aren't terrible either for someone who's going to be playing as a striker for you. 77 short passing with 72 long passing isn't terrible. Not ideal, but again, not terrible. Very usable, right? So again, this card would be really nice to use in FIFA, but for me personally, the height and the weak foot could present to be a problem. The height might actually not present to be a problem, but the weak foot 100% will always present to be a problem. I love using Mohamed Salah's upgraded cards. Like, he has, I think, a 90 or a 92 nowadays. Let me actually check his specifics. He has a 93 card now. Wow. So this card would be a ton of fun to use, but the only problem is that 2-star weak foot, which will always be noticeable. Even if he has the crazy finishing stats and whatnot, it'll still be very noticeable with this card. I never knew that he has a 93 card. That's crazy because he has so many player of the month. He has one for 89, he has one for 92, and these cards are untradeable, so I would highly recommend just getting his OTW card so that you can actually, be able, because the difference, if you actually look at the 93 version of his card and his 91, those stat upgrades are not going to be noticeable whatsoever. The passing, maybe a tiny bit. You're not really going to notice a huge difference between 87 short passing and 92 short passing. So definitely get his OTW card for someone who is 450k, and that's probably going to be way more expensive. I don't even know if this one actually shows a price. It doesn't. That's really confusing that his OTW is cheaper than his inform card. Definitely get the OTW because that guy's on form. He's going to get a team of the season, obviously. He's probably going to be in team of the year for God's sake next year. God knows, man. He's a freaking beast in real life. But yeah, very fun card to use, but it's always going to be with that weak foot that'll always present to be a problem for you. So Luis Hernandez would be very usable. Definitely give him a try to see if he would play really nicely in your team, and then just go from there. So I may have skipped Rijkaard's card. I think I accidentally may have skipped his card because he's right here. Thierry Henry, Carlos Puyol. I think I did actually end up skipping his card. I'm not sure if I actually reviewed his card. Just to make sure that I didn't, I'm gonna review it again just to make sure. So Rijkaard's CDM card. This one is a very interesting one because this is a card that people kept asking me about whether or not he would be a good card to get or a bad card to get. So in regards to Frank Rijkaard's card, he has 75 acceleration with 78 sprint speed, so that's nice to have for a CDM. Not necessarily ideal because you can get someone with better acceleration and sprint speed nowadays, excuse me, playing as a CDM, but he has 72 agility with 54 bounce, so this is like a 50-50 card, right? This is a 50-50 card in regards to whether or not he's going to move nicely for you or he's going to move incredibly poor for you. This is an incredibly hit or miss card with people, so it's a trying out type of card, right? His stats are okay. His defending stats and his physical stats are decent. His physical stats are actually already quite nice. So if you give him a shadow card, it would be more ideal to increase that pace and that acceleration and sprint speed to kind of cancel out the 54 bounce while being 6'1", right? So Frank Rijkaard's the type of card you got to try out, right? You got to see for yourself if you like him or not in your team. People always ask the question of Laurent Blanc baby card or Frank Rijkaard, and for me, I would choose Laurent Blanc's card just because he has enough pace to get into positions and move left and right really nicely. Because if you actually look at Laurent Blanc's card, right, this card right here has 85 acceleration with 82 sprint speed while also being 80 agility and 76 balance. If you give him a shadow card, his defending stats will be increased by a little bit. You could even give him an anchor card and his stats will be increased by a little bit. If you believe in the chemistry styles, then if you were to put an anchor card on him, that's pretty good stats for someone who's going to be playing as a CDM that can actually move left and right smoothly. Rijkaard will not do that for you. It's also more ideal to have a CDM that is high in the defensive work rates and medium in the attacking work rates. Low would be even better, but you can't have everything to be perfect, right? Again, Frank Rijkaard's card would be decent, but he's very, very down to trying out. He doesn't even have good finishing, nor that great of shooting stats. They're okay, right? So the thing that people need to understand is that it's weird, because I get comments like this sometimes with the CDMs. People will always say like, oh, but your focal point of your team, the CDM, their main focus is to be able to cut out the middle of the pitch and do that as their main priority. The shooting isn't necessary. Shooting is necessary in every single position. If you get a Sergio Ramos Team of the Year card, right, and you look at his shooting stats, 75 finishing with 99 shot power with 98 composure is going to help you if he's ever inside the box. Not being able to shoot with a player because they don't have shooting stats is a huge problem as to whether or not a card will perform really good or really bad for you, right? So it's something you have to try out in your teams to see if you like, right? Because when you do a corner, right, or a last-ditch corner or a last-ditch cross-in, and, you know, Sergio Ramos is up there, you tell him to join the attack or something, he needs to be able to score the goal, right, if he's going to be in front of the goal. If the ball lands to his feet, yes, every center back can score, even Manolas can score, but that's 75 finishing with 99 shot power in front of the goal with 98 composure will help you for a player in your team in every single position to be able to shoot the ball properly. So every single situation matters. There is plenty of times where the ball will randomly land onto one of your center backs, and you don't even shoot with them because you know that their shooting stats aren't very good, right? So it's always ideal to have every player be very good in the shooting department so that you don't miss those really, really important opportunities, right? Every opportunity is important. There's not a single opportunity. I didn't miss Frank Rijkaard because he's after Luis Hernandez. Yeah, man, it's very important, man. Every single situation matters, right? Mark Overmars' card actually is a really, really fun card to use. I actually do enjoy using him quite a lot. I actually used him as a left mid for a few games in a foot draft. He was playing in a 4-2-3-1. I was lucky enough to get this card, and he was moving quite nicely on the ball and off the ball. Now, that's for the fun concept. Now let's look at the specifics, right? He has 96 acceleration with 94 sprint speed. Does he have technical dribbler? He does not. So he's very based off of running, right? If you run with him and you're moving left and right, he'll be very good at doing that. 88 agility with 88 balance is fantastic to have for someone who is 5'8", so he's not going to feel sluggish whatsoever, but he's also not going to be able to do the technical dribbler stuff, right? He does have decent passing with 82 short passing, 76 long passing, 83 finishing, 82 shot power, 84 long shots with 84 composure is also quite nice to have. Since he is left-footed on the left side, it's very nice to have, because if you ever want to lay off the ball to the sides of your players going inside the 18-yard box to be able to take that driven shot across goal, Mark Overmars is going to be very good at being able to do those types of things, right? If you give him probably, since his acceleration and sprint speed is already quite nice, I would probably recommend maybe giving him dribbling traits. Let's see, marksman here. Marksman would give him it would give him physical shooting and dribbling. His passing stats are already quite nice. Is there a card that actually gives passing, shooting, and dribbling? Because if that was a card, that would be very ideal. Let me look at the card specifically here so I can actually see. Artist? No. Hawk. Hawk would be pretty good on him. Not bad at all. Powerhouse, Engine. I feel like there's a card here. I just don't know which one it is that actually does it. There probably isn't a card that does it. Maestro. That's the one I'm missing. So if you get this card, it would be more ideal to give him the Maestro card so that you can improve his passing a little bit more, his finishing improved a little bit more as well. So I think that would be the most ideal card to put on Mark Overmars for him to play to his full potential. What other cards we got here? I think Henrik Larsson we may have already seen. We haven't seen Henrik Larsson. Henrik Larsson is actually a very interesting card because this card, right, if you're using him as a cam, like as a right cam, he actually plays that role quite decently. So if you're using like a 4-2-3-1 narrow-based formation, right, like because there's a 4-2-3-1 wide and then there's a 4-2-3-1 narrow. If you use Henrik Larsson as a 4-2-3-1 narrow, being your right cam or your left cam or your central cam. Don't make him your central cam, but as your right cam, he'll play that role pretty decently, right? He's got decent shooting stats, great composure, he's decent on the ball with 92 acceleration, 88 sprint speed with 89 agility and 82 balance, right? 5'10". His problem is the lack of skill moves. So that's a card that me right away off the bat, I wouldn't like using him in my team because I like the skill moves. I need the skill moves. I can't have fun in FIFA if I can't do those four-star skill moves, which presents another topic of whether or not FIFA should make more cards 4-star skills, and I do think that they should to make more cards more usable. But this card looks pretty good, man. I enjoyed using this card one time in the draft, but it wasn't a 4-1-2-2 bracket 2. I also had Bergkamp in the same draft, but it wasn't the prime version. It was like the second last version. And then I was using like Ronaldo as the other striker. And, you know, he actually moves quite nicely. He's actually decent in the air as well with 92 jumping and 96 heading accuracy. So a fun card to use, man. As a striker, you can't really go wrong with it. If you're a fan of his in real life, it would definitely be ideal to get his card. 620k nowadays isn't really a lot of coins. So, you know, you would be kind of risking a lot. Like, if you don't have a lot of coins, I wouldn't recommend getting it. But if you have a lot and you'd like trying out different players, be my guest. I wouldn't have fun with this card just because of the 3-star skill moves. But if that's not something that bothers you and you just like to, you know, create passing plays, move the ball around like that, then it would be more ideal for you to just use this card and have fun with it and see if you like it. Now, the technical dribbler trait not being there would be a problem, but he does have the finesse shot trait, so that would be very nice to have for someone who is going to be attacking really well for you, considering he does have tries to beat the defensive line as well. Let's see if we have any other cards here. Laurent Blanc, I think I already reviewed his 91. I'm just going to check any more if there's any more prime icons down here. We reviewed all these cards here. I think this Patrick Vieira is not the highest version. That's the 88 version. Mark Overmars. Emmanuel Petit. I think this actually might be the prime version. No, Emmanuel Petit's over here. I could do the second last version of the cards too if you guys want me to. I can definitely look into those as well. I think Rui Koch is actually the best version of his card. It's not either. I think I've already reviewed all the prime icons already, unless Andrei Shevchenko is someone I didn't get. No, Shevchenko is one I got. I just want to make sure that I haven't missed any of the cards here, guys. So that, you know, we don't get into a situation where people are like, oh my god, Inception, you missed one of the cards. JJ Okocha, no, his prime is a cam, I think. I think I already reviewed that one as well, yes. I'm pretty sure I've gone through all the prime icons. I don't think they could be rated any lower, to be honest. I think these cards are all pretty much done. So yeah, guys, I think that's going to do it for all the prime icons. Yes, that's pretty much it. So that's going to do it for all the prime icons. I'm sorry if I missed any of them in the video. I hope you guys did enjoy this type of video today. If you guys did enjoy the video, please drop a thumbs up on it. It helps the channel a lot. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.